The wind rolled off the lake in heavy sighs, carrying with it the scent of something long hidden beneath the waterline. Deputy Mara Vance stood at the edge of the old dock, soaked to the bone, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand. Her K-9 partner, Diesel, hadn't moved in nearly 15 minutes. Just stood stiff, nose low, staring at the murk like it stared back. Locals said the lake had secrets. Most dismissed them. But tonight, with the fog thick and the dog refusing to budge, Mara knew something was waiting down there. Something that was never meant to be found. The wood of the dock groaned under Mara's boots. Lake Caddis had always creeped her out. Even as a kid, too still, too black. The kind of place that swallowed light and sound with equal hunger. Now, 27 years old, Deputy Badge clipped her vest, gun holstered. She felt no more comfortable than when she used a rider bike past here, pedaling faster every time. Diesel's paws were planted at the lip of the dock, nails twitching against the old planks. The shepherd's chest was tight, alert, breath slow, controlled. Mara crouched beside him, rain peppering her back. "What is it, buddy?" Diesel didn't respond. Not a whine, not a bark. Just that fixed stare. His entire body pointed at the same spot. 10 feet off the dock, water sloshing gently against the supports, fog curling over its surface like breath on a mirror. Mara tried calling him off. Twice. Nothing. She stood again and pressed her radio. Unit 42. At the old dock on Lake Caddis. K-9's alerting on something in the water. Requesting Marine unit. Over. Static crackled in a slow voice. Copy that. 42. Divers are tied up at Rock Bluff, but I'll push them your way. Might be a couple hours. Understood, she said, lowering the mic. Diesel still hadn't moved. The call that brought her here had been vague. Suspicious activity near the water, the woman had said. Didn't give a name, just a shaking voice and a location before hanging up. Not the first time the town got jumpy during storm season. Most of Merrill Glen was empty cabins and fishing docks now. Only a few stubborn folks still living around the lake. But this felt different. Not a prank, not a misunderstanding. Something beneath them was wrong. By the time the dive truck arrived, tail lights glowing like eyes in the fog. It was nearing midnight. Mara's fingers were numb. Diesel had only moved to shift his weight. The diver was a short man with strong hands and wary eyes. Mitch Cleary. He didn't smile as he unpacked his gear, and he didn't waste time asking why they were here. His partner, Elena Torres, followed him onto the dock, already zipping up her dry suit. Mara briefed them quickly. Dog started alerting about 10:40 p.m. He hasn't moved since. No visual evidence in the water, but his posture is consistent with narcotics or remains. Water temps 48, Mitch muttered. Visibility? Less than 2 feet. Lovely, Elena said. They slid into the lake like ghosts. Mara waited. Every creak of the dock sounded louder in the silence. Diesel stayed locked in place, tail stiff, breath shallow. Minutes passed. Then, bang, a metal clank echoed from beneath the water, followed by a muffled shout. Mara knelt at the edge just as Elena's head broke the surface. She was gasping. "Something's here," she shouted, voice high. "We found a box, large, chained to the supports. It's heavy. We're going to need help bringing it up." Mara blinked. "A box." Mitch surfaced behind her. "You got bolt cutters?" "In the trunk." "Get 'em. Fast." 20 minutes later, they hoisted the object onto the dock with grunts and ropes. It was a rusted steel storage box, the kind used on fishing boats. Chain shut, lock corroded. Mitch cut the chain. Elena hesitated before lifting the lid. Then, in one slow motion, she cracked it open. The smell hit them first. Mara's stomach twisted. Inside, wrapped in layers of tarp and plastic, were bones. Small, delicate, not recent, but unmistakable. A child. Diesel whined. Mara turned and threw up off the dock. The crime scene team arrived just after 2 a.m. Floodlights cast harsh shadows over the dock. Cameras clicked. Evidence bags rustled. Diesel had finally moved, curled on a dry patch of grass under cruiser, but his eyes never left the lake. Captain Rader showed up just before dawn. still in his house shoes, coat half zipped. He crouched beside the box with a flashlight, jaw tight. "How long you think's been down there?" he asked. "Judging by the bones," the forensic tech said, adjusting her gloves. "Years. Maybe 10. Could be more once we get the full analysis." Rader looked at Mara. "Good work." It was Diesel. Rader gave the dog a brief glance. Still. At sunrise, Mara stood alone at the dock's edge. She watched the fog peel back across the lake like a curtain, revealing the rippling water beneath. She'd lived in Merrow Glen her whole life, and she knew the stories. Kids who went missing, rumors about the old dock, names whispered during sleepovers. Harper, Wesley, June, unsolved, forgotten. Diesel nudged her hand. She knelt, fingers raking through his fur. "You found someone, didn't you, boy?" His ears twitched, and he pressed his head into her chest. Later that morning, the lab confirmed what she already suspected. The remains belonged to Harper Langley, 8 years old. Disappeared after summer Bible camp in 2009. Everyone had assumed she wandered into the woods and got lost. A search had gone on for 2 weeks, but the trail had gone cold. There had been no suspects, no clues. Until now. Mara sat in the cruiser, staring out at the lake, the name ringing in her ears. Harper Langley. But something didn't sit right. A missing child, chained in a box, weighted down, hidden for over a decade. That was an accident. That was a message. Diesel barked sharply once. Mara looked up. He was facing the trees across the road, tail low, ears flat. A man was standing just beyond the tree line, still, watching. He turned and vanished into the woods. Mara unholstered her sidearm. "Stay," she told Diesel, voice firm. She crossed the road fast, eyes sharp, heart hammering. The woods swallowed the road almost instantly. Brush was thick. She followed the path where the man had been, moving carefully, gun raised. Branches snapped ahead, a flicker of movement. She reached a clearing. Empty, just moss, leaves, and a single, broken swing hanging from a bent metal frame. Then something shiny caught her eye. A necklace. A child's locket, caught in the brambles. Inside was a tiny photo, faded, curled. Harper and someone else. A man, smiling. Mara's blood ran cold, because she knew that face. The photo was old, but the eyes hadn't changed. Deputy Cal Jensen, retired 2 years ago, still lived 3 miles out near Hollow Ridge. Mara returned to the cruiser and sat for a long time, locket in her hand. She remembered Cal teaching her how to shoot, how he gave her Diesel after his first K9 had passed, how he spoke at her dad's funeral like a brother. And now, she looked down at Diesel. "Did you know?" The dog only stared at her. She closed her eyes. Something was breaking inside. Mara parked a 1/4 mile down from Cal Jensen's place. The rain had slowed to a mist, the kind that clung to your skin like sweat. Trees arched over the gravel road in crooked silhouettes, and every step on the wet leaves sounded too loud. Diesel stayed behind in the cruiser, not because she didn't trust him, because she didn't trust herself. She crept up the path, boots silent on soft earth. Cal's cabin was set back from the road, surrounded by pine and silence. Porch light off, curtains drawn, still as a grave. Mara kept her hand close to her holster as she approached the porch. She didn't call out, just listened. Inside, something moved, a chair leg, or maybe a footstep. She stepped up onto the porch, wood creaking beneath her, and knocked once. Silence. Then the door opened a crack. Cal's face appeared. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were bloodshot, shirt wrinkled and stained. His voice was gravel. "Mara." She stared at him for a long second. Then, "You gonna let me in?" His eyes flicked to the road behind her, then back. He stepped aside. The cabin smelled like old paper and coffee grounds. A fire had been lit, but it barely cut the damp. Photos lined the mantel. Most were crooked. One showed Cal in uniform, standing beside a younger Mara and her father. Another, tucked into the corner, showed a little girl with braids. Harper Langley. Mara's pulse ticked louder. Cal moved slowly, like everything hurt. He poured 2 mugs of black coffee and set one in front of her. She didn't touch it. Harper's body was found last night, she said. He nodded almost imperceptibly. Diesel found her. Good dog, Cal said quietly. She was chained in a box, sunk off the old dock. A pause. Then Cal looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Why are you here, Mara? She pulled the locket from her pocket and set it on the table. I found this in the woods behind the lake. Thought you might recognize it. He stared at it a long time. His voice, when it came, was hollow. She gave that to me the summer she vanished. Why? She said it made her feel safe. Mara leaned forward, voice flat. You were the last one to see her alive, weren't you? Cal didn't blink. You know what this town does to people who ask too many questions? He said quietly. They disappear, or they drink themselves out of remembering. You were a cop, Cal. I was a dog with a badge, like the rest of us. He picked up the locket, rolled it in his fingers like it was some kind of prayer bead. She came to the station 3 days before she vanished, said someone was watching her. Mara froze. You never put that in the report. There was no report. Why? Because the man watching her was wearing our badge. Mara sat back like she'd been punched. Who? Cal didn't answer. He just stared into the fire. Then, so soft she almost didn't catch it, I tried to get her away from him. I told her to meet me by the dock that night. I was going to drive her to her aunt's place upstate, but she never showed. I thought maybe she'd change her mind. She didn't. I know that now. Why didn't you come forward? Because I was a coward, Mara, and by the time I realized what had happened, it was too late. Everything got buried. The truth, me. Mara's throat was tight. You still haven't said his name. Cal looked at her, and for the first time, she saw it. Fear, not of her, but of him. Raider, he said. One word. A bomb. Mara's stomach dropped. Captain Raider? Cal nodded. He took over Harper's case 6 months after she went missing. Scrubbed everything. Made it disappear. Mara's hand shook. That doesn't make sense. He was just a detective then. He was rising, and Harper threatened that. He had to make sure she never got the chance to talk. Mara drove home without the radio on. The windshield wipers kept a nervous rhythm. Raider had been her mentor, her captain, a steady hand in the chaos. And yet the more she thought about it, the more things didn't line up. How quick he had shut down searches. How he always changed the subject when old cases came up. How he always hated Diesel, too stubborn, he used to say, too twitchy, because Diesel had been trained by Cal. And Raider didn't trust what the dog might remember. Back home, Mara locked the door, dropped her knees, and wrapped her arms around Diesel. Good boy, she whispered into his fur. She didn't sleep that night. She spent it digging. The next morning, she accessed the station's cold case files. Most had been digitized, but Harper's file was suspiciously thin. No statements. No interviews. No crime scene photos. Just one page. Missing juvenile. Presumed lost. She checked the sign-in logs for the old evidence locker. Raider's name showed up twice. Both times after Harper's disappearance. Both times alone. Mara backed out. She printed the logs. Printed the forensic report. Printed the photo of Harper and Cal. Then she made copies, just in case. That evening, she drove to Raider's house. No lights on. Car in the drive. She didn't call ahead. She didn't plan what to say. She just walked to the door and knocked. He answered in sweatpants and a faded sheriff's department t-shirt. His smile was wide, too wide. Mara, he said, to what do I owe the pleasure? She didn't return the smile. I need to talk to you about Harper Langley. The smile didn't move, but the eyes narrowed. Just a fraction. You digging up ghosts now, deputy? I'm trying to find the truth. He nodded slowly, then stepped aside, then come in and find it. His living room smelled like whiskey and pine cleaner. Trophies lined the walls, commendations plaques, a few photos with state senators. The whole place was curated like a museum to himself. Rader poured them both a drink. Mara didn't touch hers. He sipped his. So, he said, "What's got you stirring up that old nightmare?" "We found her. Last night." He stopped mid-sip. "Say again." "She was at the bottom of the lake. Locked in a box. Diesel led us right to her." Rader stared at the fire. "Damn shame," he said finally. "No signs of struggle in the area. She was moved. Deliberately hidden." "That's so." She took a breath. "And Cal Jensen said she came to him days before she vanished. Said someone was following her." Rader raised an eyebrow. "Cal Jensen? He named you." A beat of silence. Then he chuckled. "Did he now? You altered her case files. You deleted reports. You accessed the evidence locker, alone." He smiled again. This time it chilled her. "You sure you want to do this, Mara?" She didn't answer. "You really think you're the first person who's come sniffing around this? This town needs to forget her. Because what happened to her wasn't about one man. It was about all of them." Her breath hitched. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, voice calm. "There was a group. I wasn't the only one. Just the one with enough sense to clean up." "Who else?" He shook his head, like he was disappointed in her. "You think you're safe because you're wearing that badge? That dog of yours is the only smart one. At least he knows when to stay quiet." He stood. "Now, I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. You're going to walk out of here, and we're both going to forget about Harper Langley. And if I don't..." He smiled wider. "Well, Mara, people get lost around that lake all the time." She left. Didn't say another word. Just walked back into the dark, night pressing in around her like hands. But she didn't go home. She went to the station, unlocked the armory, took a second pistol, then picked up Diesel. They had one more stop to make. She didn't know who else was involved, but someone else knew. And it wasn't just Cal. It was someone closer, someone inside, someone she trusted. And Cal Jensen said she came to him days before she vanished. Said someone was following her. Rader raised an eyebrow. "Cal Jensen? He named you." A beat of silence. Then he chuckled. "Did he now? You altered her case files. You deleted reports. You accessed the evidence locker, alone." He smiled again. This time it chilled her. "You sure you want to do this, Mara?" She didn't answer. "You really think you're the first person who's come sniffing around this? This town needs to forget her. Because what happened to her wasn't about one man. It was about all of them." Her breath hitched. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, voice calm. "There was a group. I wasn't the only one. Just the one with enough sense to clean up." "Who else?" He shook his head, like he was disappointed in her. "You think you're safe because you're wearing that badge? That dog of yours is the only smart one. At least he knows when to stay quiet." He stood. "Now, I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. You're going to walk out of here, and we're both going to forget about Harper Langley. And if I don't..." He smiled wider. "Well, Mara, people get lost around that lake all the time." She left. Didn't say another word. Just walked back into the dark, night pressing in around her like hands. But she didn't go home. She went to the station, unlocked the armory, took a second pistol, then picked up Diesel. They had one more stop to make. She didn't know who else was involved, but someone else knew. And it wasn't just Cal. It was someone closer, someone inside, someone she trusted. The drive to the Langley property took 23 minutes. Diesel rode in the back seat, head low, eyes trained on the road ahead. The dog had barely made a sound since they left Raiders. Almost like he knew something final was coming. Mara gripped the steering wheel tighter as the road narrowed to a broken dirt lane. She hadn't been out here since Harper vanished. The farmhouse looked smaller than she remembered. Broken shingles, porch sagging, one upstairs window boarded shut. The air was thicker here, as if grief had settled over the place and never moved out. Mara parked under the dead oak. Diesel growled low in his throat. She reached back and brushed his head. "With me?" Mrs. Langley opened the door, before Mara knocked. She hadn't aged so much as hollowed. Skin like parchment, lips thinned, eyes gray and dry. "You found her," she said. Mara nodded. "I felt it last night," the woman murmured. Felt something give way in the house, like the walls stopped holding their breath. "I'm sorry it took so long." Mrs. Langley stepped back. "Come in." The living room was cluttered with old photo albums and unopened mail. The TV was on mute, paused on a game show. On the mantel was a framed photo of Harper, 8 years old, missing a front tooth, but smiling like she didn't know the world could be cruel. "She loved that dog of yours," Mrs. Langley said. Mara looked up sharply. "You knew Diesel?" "Oh, yes. He and Harper were inseparable during the summer Cal was training him. She'd sneak him peanut butter behind the shed. Thought nobody noticed." Diesel lay at the woman's feet now, tail thumping once. "She was different, wasn't she?" Mrs. Langley said, voice soft. "Harper, she saw things, heard things she shouldn't." Mara hesitated. "She told me once that grown men whispered ugly things when they thought no one could hear. She didn't know what the words meant, but I did." "Did you ever suspect anyone?" Mrs. Langley didn't answer, just walked to a dusty cabinet and opened a drawer. She took out a photograph and handed it to Mara. It was old, torn at the corner. A group photo, sheriff's department. Some smiling, some not. Mara studied each face. Her father's, Cal's, Rader's, and next to him, Sergeant Blake Vance. Her father. She couldn't breathe. Mara stared at the photo like it had turned to fire in her hands. "No," she said out loud. Mrs. Langley watched her quietly. "He was one of the good ones once. But good men don't stay clean in a dirty system. Not without losing something. He loved her. He helped search for her. Maybe he did, but love doesn't stop guilt." Mara stumbled back. She remembered the late nights her dad came home stinking of lake water and bourbon. How he never talked about the Langley case. How he told her to never go near the dock. How he looked at Cal like he wanted to bury him. She thought it was grief. Maybe it was something else. She turned and walked out without a word. Mara drove until the trees thinned and the sky cracked open above her. She pulled off the road, chest heaving, and threw up in the weeds. Diesel sat beside her, silent. The dog had known. He'd always known. And he had led her here not just to find Harper, but to force her to see the rot inside her own bloodline. She went back to the station at dusk. Not to quit, to clean house. Rader was waiting in her office. His badge was on her desk. "I knew you wouldn't let it go," he said. "You buried a child," Mara said. "You covered for monsters. Maybe you were one of them." He shrugged. "What matters now is what you're going to do with it." She opened the drawer, pulled out the folder, the dive report, the photo, the locker logs, a copy of her father's journal, found that morning in a storage box in the attic. Entries that stopped just after Harper disappeared. One entry repeated over and over. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what they would do. I didn't know they'd hurt her." She slid it all across the desk. "You're going down for this. And you're taking every last name with you." Rader laughed, soft and slow. "You really think this town wants the truth? You think they'll thank you for gutting their memories?" "I don't care what they want. I care what she deserved." His face dropped. Just for a second. He stood, walked to the door, then turned. "You're your father's daughter. Mara. Same fire. Same blind spot." And then he was gone. The arrests happened quickly. 3 former deputies, 1 judge, 1 retired camp director, all tied to Harper's disappearance, each with different roles. Some abusers, some accessories, all guilty. Rader was the last to be taken in. The town cracked like old wood. People who once sat shoulder to shoulder in church now avoided each other's eyes. Merrill Glen shrank inward. Shops closed early. Gossip filled the silence where truth had been stuffed down for years. Some thanked Mara. Most didn't. She didn't care. She buried Harper's locket beneath the tree by the lake where Diesel first froze. A new plaque went up on the dock. Simple, quiet, for Harper Langley, for the children who never got to speak. We hear you now. Mara kept her badge. Refused every offer for interviews. Book deals. Awards. She didn't need a spotlight. She needed peace. She and Diesel still drove past the lake every now and then. He'd press his nose to the window and watch the water ripple. He never barked. He didn't need to anymore. One autumn morning, Mara received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a child's handwriting, crooked and careful. Thank you for finding her. I still talk to her sometimes. I think she's not scared anymore. June. June. Another name that had vanished. Another whisper in the dark that Diesel had chased. Mara folded the note and slid it into her jacket, then looked at Diesel, who lay at her feet, eyes half closed. Still useless, huh? His tail thumped once.